Hey there gamers, welcome back to the Board Game Co channel, and this is a preview of Rise of Babel. Well, hey there gamers, it's Professor Meg here, and welcome back to the Board Game Co channel. Today we are taking a look at Rise of Babel. Thank you to Bedouin Games for sponsoring this. There is a Kickstarter link down below that you can check out their current crowdfunding campaign, but there's also a playthrough already on the channel, so if you want to see exactly how the game plays as opposed to the details that I'm going to go over, definitely check that out as well. Rise of Babel is going to be a deck building and tile placing game where you are gaining cards from this market and deck building to gain better actions and using that to upgrade your player board and unlock different things that will give you victory points, as well as scoring in these different towers. Now there are 3 different towers that you'll play through, and once one is full, the next one will be placed, etc. So you can see that this one is just a 3x3 grid. And as new ones are placed, they get bigger and bigger, so there are more options for you to be scoring points, especially as you are upgrading your player board, so you'll have more and more options and your different cards that you're gaining from the market. So you'll be placing different tiles in these towers and using this scoring system here. At the end of each of the 3 rounds, you'll score and see what points you can get for the different towers as well. Rise of Babel uses deck building as its engine, but the meat and potatoes of this game is going to be placing these different resource tiles. You want to place them in the different towers for different point scoring, and there are also a lot of things that you're going to be able to do to add versatility, such as different resources you can unlock that provide an either or type of resource, and finally one that could provide one of any. And you also have your elephants, which you will be upgrading to have more and more room to be able to carry all of your different goods up to the different towers for you as well, because you'll be using cards to place these as well as your elephants and your player board, all working in pretty good synergy. In Rise of Babel, players start with 10 different cards in their deck, and this is classic deck building where you are going to be shuffling, drawing 5 cards, playing all 5 throughout the round. You'll play them all on your turn, and then discarding them, drawing 5 new cards, and whenever you can't draw any, you'll shuffle your discard and draw new cards from there. Any that you purchase will also go to your discard, so that's a way that you'll be using them in the future, but not quite immediately. Now, we're going to go over some of these cards that you start off with because they are your basics, and I think that's going to show you a lot about what you're trying to do with the game because this is how you're taking your main actions. So we have wealth here, and while we are looking at wealth, I'm also going to grab riches. And one final wealth. So those are just providing money for you, these 3 cards here. And that's really great because you're going to be using that to purchase these different cards from the market. A lot of them are much more powerful than the cards that you start with, so you're definitely going to be wanting to use this system and your different riches and wealth to gain more cards. The next card is Purchase, and Purchase would gain you a gold, but when you have multiple bars like this, you have to choose which bar you're going to activate. So you could play the Purchase card to gain 1 gold, but you could instead play it to pay 3 gold, and you would get a rainbow token and be able to place it into the tower. Now those are these here. There are 4 different resources in the game that are going to score differently based on these charts here, and based on these rainbow ones, both players would be able to score from them. So if there was a rainbow tile here, the blue player would be able to benefit from it as well as the green player if the green player placed a charcoal there as well. So that's how the rainbows work and how you'll get them, and there are definitely plenty of other cards that will come out in the market that will get you those types of tokens as well. Now that was Purchase, and the next thing I'm going to go over is moving your elephants. In this game, there's an area on the player board where you have your different elephants that you are able to have pick up resources for you and carry them up to the towers to then deposit them. Now they're able to carry more and more as you upgrade them, and you're also able to score additional victory points depending on how you upgrade them as well. An example of an elephant card would be this, where if you chose the white bar on the top, you would be able to move your elephant. So if I was the green player, I would be able to move my elephant up to this area, getting closer to the tower. If I was the blue player, I would be able to move them up here to the tower and then deliver these resources. I'll get to what that looks like in a minute, but another thing that you're able to do is take a tile from your stalls and add it to your camp. Your stalls are going to be these areas here where there are currently a wood, a stone, and a steel available, and they would be able to go here into the camps, which are then picked up by the elephants. After that, we have Voyage, which is another elephant card. This is one where you're going to move your elephant or gain a gold. So depending on if you want to be moving them or if you want to set up something else through the round, you could gain a gold instead to purchase from the market. Alright, and now we have Overhaul. Overhaul is going to be extremely important. Its bottom bar just gives you a gold, but its top bar is you would trash this card and then place a resource tile to the warehouse and move the tablet tile that matches the placed resource one step forward. That would mean that you have these different tablets here and you would move them forward. When you move to this area, you'll gain 2 victory points for each one that is there, and you unlock these double tokens for you that you'll be able to use. And then after that, you'll unlock different abilities and eventually victory points as well. So it's really important, but this card is trashed when you use it, so you will need other ways to do that as well. We also have Fast Track. In Fast Track, you can place a tile from your warehouse to the towers. So this is when you would have a tile here and play this to just immediately place it into the tower for endgame scoring, or for end round scoring. And the one on the bottom would be something similar, where you would place a tile from your stalls into your markets. So you would be able to move a tile up to here and then refill that stall area. After that, we have Loading. Loading would just be taking a tile from here and moving it to your camps for your elephants to be able to pick up. And finally, we have Upgrade. Upgrade is similar to the one that I already showed you. This is the one where you would place a resource tile to the warehouse and move the tablet tile and then get the different benefits. So this is another way that you will be having this card come up and be upgrading your player boards along the way. One final thing to note about the deck building aspect is that there is also Teamsters and Jobs. These are always available, that you can always purchase these if you don't like what's available in the market, and you trash them to basically take an extra action, so they're pretty helpful if you need to take those and you don't have a better option available. Now we're going to talk a little bit about how we are filling the towers and how they will score at the end of each round. So you can see how this is already set up here, and you can see that the blue player has this elephant with a lot of resources on it. If they move their elephant forward 1, they would then be able to drop off these resources into this area. Now I'm just going to fill this to show you guys this is really not great for the green player at all, but then this elephant would go back down to his camp. Now let's say eventually this elephant came up here and placed these resources down here. This would be a horrible game for the green player and great for the blue player, because you only score for the tiles that are yours. So looking at these, the stones score for diagonal. The first one that is diagonal from it would be +3, +7, +12, and +15. But there are no diagonals for the stones, so nothing would happen. Now for the charcoal, you get +2 for each one that is adjacent to another, but in this example, the green would not score for being next to the blue. You would need 2 green next to each other. Now if this tile was over here, then that would score for this green player, and they would be able to gain 2 points, and the blue player would also gain 2 points for these. Now these are really important with this steel chain here. You can see that as they go down, you get additional points, +3, +6, +10, and +14. So right here, a group of 3 would be 6 points. Now, again, this lone stone here and this wood wouldn't score, but to show you how wood scores, you get 0 and then +3, 6, 10, and 14 for any that are in a straight row. So if there had been a green wood here, then they would score for those tiles. Now, another fun thing to note is how I said there are these rainbow tiles. So if, for example, this tile was not here, and also if you see that there are things that match what were placed there, you just get an extra point when you do that, but you aren't restricted to that. You don't have to, and some of them have different actions that you'll be able to take when you place there as well. But let's say, for sake of the example, we had a rainbow tile here. This would score for both the blue player and the green player because it's a rainbow tile. Now there are also these smaller towers here. These you're also going to be filling. It kind of gives you somewhere else to be able to place for scoring, but the center ones need to be filled to be able to end the round. So there are always a certain number out depending on the number of players, so you will adjust that depending on how many players you have, but players are also able to build on these as well, which may be advantageous for you to be able to gain some scoring points. Overall, throughout Rise of Babel, players are going to be working to unlock their player boards as much as they can and in a way that is benefiting their play style. Depending on the cards that you're purchasing from the market, if, for example, you are moving your elephant quite a bit, you might work on upgrading your elephants to be able to carry more and score additional points depending on the resources that they're delivering. Additionally, you may just be interested in getting extra tokens, and you would be using your player board here to unlock that as well. Players will be using a pretty tight deck building system to place the resources as best as possible, and trust me, this becomes a real free-for-all. You're going to be planning what you can do up in this area, but you're also going to be trying to plan against your opponent because they could be able to block you at any time. There are a lot of times where you can get shut out for points just depending on what tiles get placed next to you, and you can be brutally stopped from something you were planning on doing, so upgrading your elephants so that they can deliver multiple resources at the same time is really, really strong, because then you can place as many tiles as you can and kind of lock in at least a little bit of scoring. Another thing to note is as you go higher and higher in the tower, as I said, the grids do get bigger. That means that you are able to score higher and higher in later rounds as opposed to the first round. So if you do have a hard first round where it doesn't look too optimal for you, don't worry, because as soon as you're on those bigger grids, there's definitely a lot of options for scoring where you'll be able to maneuver around the different boards. Overall, Rise of Babel feels like a very classic deck building game with a lot of familiar mechanics, but it does a lot on the board, especially with a shared tile placement place, that there's a lot going on in here that you have to really think about and strategize. A lot of the actions seem pretty simple, but depending on the order that you use them and how you chain them and what you use to upgrade and get different cards from the market, it could really change the game a lot for you. I highly suggest checking out the playthrough on the channel because I think it really shows the game off well. You can check out their Kickstarter link down below. Thank you to Bedouin Games for sponsoring this video. This has been a preview of Rise of Babel. I'm Professor Meg, and thank you all for watching the Board Game Co channel. I'll see you next time. Bye!